It was only when my wife, the heiress to a dynasty, saw me shredding all my identification, preparing to go head-to-head with her family's colossal corporation, that she finally realized she'd lost control of me, her trophy husband. But she was stunned when she saw the divorce papers I handed her. The agreement stated that I would leave with nothing, even surrendering custody of our daughter. I said calmly, "Our marriage has been over for a long time. I have no desire to maintain this shattered relationship any longer. Signing this is best for both of us. You and your mother both want Dylan to be your husband, so I'm just making room for him." With that, I walked out of the gilded cage I had called home. I thought she would be sensible and sign the papers, but I never imagined she would just toss them in the trash. I had been groomed by the Sterling family to be their son-in-law since I was a boy. I married Chloe Sterling at 20, and by 22 we had our daughter Mia. Mia looked a lot like Chloe, quiet and reserved, never showing me any affection. Last night, for the first time ever, Mia came to me on her own. She said, "Daddy, Uncle Dylan is sick and he's gonna die. His last wish is to marry Mommy. Can you please divorce her?" In that moment, I lost all hope for both mother and daughter. Fine, I thought, let's get a divorce. I'll give them what they want. The next morning at breakfast, I handed the divorce papers to Chloe again, trying to show my sincerity. "I thought about what our daughter said all night," I began. "Since she's so fond of Dylan, I'll agree to the divorce. I'll also give up custody of Mia and walk away with nothing. You can transfer all our joint assets into Mia's name. Consider it my contribution to her upbringing." Chloe set down her coffee, looked up, and frowned. "Were you talking to me?" I glanced at the phone on the table in front of her and realized she hadn't heard a single word. A profound sense of helplessness washed over me. This was always her response whenever I tried to talk to her, complete and utter disregard. For instance, she had been coming home every night recently smelling of ambergris. Our daughter once let it slip that ambergris was Dylan's favorite scent. I couldn't stop myself from asking, "Who have you been seeing?" Chloe just replied coolly, "A friend," without even glancing at me. I honestly wondered if, after 5 years of marriage, she even knew her husband's name was Ethan Hayes. I was truly done with this suffocating existence. I flipped the agreement to the last page and pushed it in front of her. "Just sign it. It won't take more than a minute of your time." Chloe shot me an annoyed look and was about to read the document when our daughter ran over. "Mommy, are you going golfing with Uncle Dylan later? I want to go too." As Chloe started to stand up, I put my hand on her wrist, my voice firm. "Sign it." Chloe turned to look at me, a flicker of surprise in her eyes, likely unaccustomed to my sudden assertiveness. Our daughter tugged at her arm. "Hurry, Mommy. If we make Uncle Dylan wait, he'll get mad and punish you again." Chloe murmured an agreement and, without a glance at the contents, signed her name. The two of them quickly left. I couldn't tell if she signed without reading because she trusted me, or because she simply didn't care enough to look. I held the pen and wrote my own name next to hers. In my entire life, Chloe's name and mine had appeared side by side only twice, once on our marriage certificate and now on this. After signing, my hand wouldn't stop trembling. I took a deep breath, folded the document, and mailed it to the lawyer I had already contacted. Then I went upstairs to pack. I opened my closet and saw it was full of clothes, none of which I actually liked. No one knew that the person I was before 16 loved bungee jumping, street racing, and laughing without restraint. But the Sterlings didn't need a person, they needed a suitable match for their daughter. Even after sacrificing my true self, I never earned any respect, only mockery from Chloe's friends. They always said Dylan and Chloe were the better match. Thinking about it now, I knew getting a divorce was the right thing to do. I refused to let my spirit die in the Sterlings' prison. After packing a small bag, I called my best friend, Alex, to pick me up. He arrived quickly, a confused look on his face. "What's up? How do you have time for me? Today's your birthday. Didn't you say last week you were celebrating with your wife and daughter?" I froze. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my messages. Sure enough, a week ago, I had booked a restaurant for my birthday and even sent Chloe and I a message about it. She had never replied. I got in the car, and Alex drove us to the restaurant anyway. But when we gave my reservation number to the manager, he looked uncomfortable and offered me a refund. "Sir, I'm very sorry, but the entire restaurant was booked out by Miss Sterling for a private event. She's celebrating her husband's birthday. We'd be happy to refund your deposit twofold for the inconvenience." Alex just laughed, pulled me inside, and told the manager, "No refund necessary." "You're looking at him." Just then, the sound of a happy family laughing drifted over from a nearby table. It was Chloe and Mia, presenting a birthday cake to Dylan. "I wish you all the best," Chloe said to him. Mia added, "I hope your wish comes true, Uncle Dylan." and you can marry mommy and be my new daddy." I watched as Chloe's eyes never left Dylan's face, while my own daughter attentively pulled out his chair, poured his drink, and straightened his collar. In 5 years of marriage, Chloe never even knew when my birthday was, let alone wished me well. Alex couldn't take it anymore and started to march over there, but I held him back. "It's not worth it," I said. "We've already signed the divorce papers." Alex immediately took me back to his place. I was calm, but he was furious. He called Chloe every name in the book and called Mia an ungrateful brat. "For 5 years, you've dedicated your entire life to them, 24/7, he raged. "You have no job, no friends, nothing for yourself. I finally get you to come out for a drink, and one phone call from Chloe sends you running home like an excited kid to make her some soup for her hangover. When Mia was a baby and wouldn't stop crying, you were the one up with her night after night. You gave them everything, and this is how they repay you. Ethan, I know you're hurting. It's okay to let it out, man." Listening to him, I just leaned back on the couch and took a long drink of my beer. Couldn't cry. The tears had already been shed. When Mrs. Sterling forced me through endless etiquette lessons and Chloe ignored my pleas for help. The snowy night, I waited up for her until midnight, only for her to never come home without a word. The time Mia had a raging fever and Chloe hung up on me when I called for help. I once naively dreamed of a loving marriage, of a happy family, but they never truly saw me. After 5 years, it was long past time for me to wake up. Early the next morning, my phone rang. It was Chloe. She sounded like she had just woken up, her voice soft. "Where's the necklace I always wear on Mondays?" Without thinking, I answered, "In the top drawer of the walk-in closet." "And the matching earrings?" "In the drawer right below it." It was only after the exchange that it hit me. Chloe and I were getting divorced. Soon, I wouldn't have to wake up at dawn to lay out her clothes for the day, or wait up until midnight with a bowl of warm soup for her. She didn't seem to have even noticed I was gone. I offered a gentle reminder. "You should have the housekeeper reorganize your closet. From now on, you can ask her when you can't find something. We're getting divorced, so it's not really appropriate for you to keep calling me for things like this." I heard a faint from her end, followed by the sound of a drawer sliding open. I thought I had made my point and was about to hang up, but then she gave an order. "For the next few days, I expect you to make your seafood chowder and bring it to my office at Sterling Corp for lunch." Then she hung up. Clearly, nothing I'd said about the divorce had registered at all. I took a deep breath and blocked Chloe's number. After a moment's thought, I blocked the number for Mia's preschool teacher as well, but I forgot to block her mother. So, after sleeping in, I was on my way out for lunch when Mrs. Sterling cornered me at the door. She shoved a stack of photos in my face, all of them intimate shots of Chloe and Dylan. "Ethan, it's been 10 years, and you've been nothing but a disappointment," she seethed. "I personally molded you for this role since you were 16, and you can't even control your own wife? If I'd known you were this useless, I never would have cared that Dylan was born out of wedlock. I should have chosen him for Chloe from the start. When the Sterlings chose me, everyone in New York City envied my luck. But from the age of 16, I had no freedom. My entire existence was dedicated to becoming the perfect Sterling son-in-law. I felt like I was suffocating. In my senior year of high school, I deliberately started a relationship and made a scene in front of Chloe, hoping she'd call off the engagement. But she said nothing. I've only been married to Chloe for 5 years, but I've been their puppet for 10. I was done. I told her mother directly, "Chloe and I have already signed the divorce papers. I'm not asking for custody, and I'm leaving with nothing. If you're not satisfied, you're free to find a more suitable husband for her." I turned to leave. She was stunned for a moment, then grabbed my wrist, her voice shaking with fury. "Ethan, you wouldn't dare." I turned back slowly, a smile playing on my lips. "There's nothing I wouldn't dare. The title Sterling family son-in-law was never an honor to me." With that, I calmly turned and walked away. This time, she didn't stop me, but the pent-up frustration was unbearable. I had to let it out. I uncovered the bright red sports car that had been sitting in the garage for years, slammed on the accelerator, and peeled out. But Chloe must be my bad luck charm, because as I tore through an intersection, I collided with an oncoming Maybach. The license plate was all 8s. It was hers. Her assistant, who was driving, stared at me in shock. "Mr. Hayes." I wasn't surprised she was shocked. In 5 years, everyone in Chloe's circle had developed a fixed image of me. Mild-mannered, unassuming, utterly boring. A man like that street racing was, to say the least, unexpected. I didn't offer an explanation. I just handed her a card. "Have your people call my insurance agent about the damages." Then I sped off. The assistant got back in the Maybach. "Ms. Sterling," she said, "that was Mr. Hayes." Chloe pinched the bridge of her nose and said coolly, "Just go." Her assistant knew better than to ask questions. But just 3 hours later, our paths crossed again. Chloe was at a racetrack on the outskirts of the city, signing a land development deal with a partner. A race was just finishing, and a red sports car, the same one from the accident, took first place in a blaze of glory. When the driver stepped out, helmet in hand, and it was me, her assistant gasped. "Ms. Sterling, I had no idea Mr. Hayes was such an incredible driver." Chloe didn't say a word, but her brow furrowed as she noticed the admiring glances I was getting from the women in the crowd. I felt her eyes on me, but I didn't look up or acknowledge her. For years, unless we were at some high society gala, Chloe always pretended she didn't know me in public. So, when the race organizer introduced us, I played along, extending a hand politely. "A pleasure to finally meet you, Miss Sterling." Chloe's face remained a blank mask, making the moment incredibly awkward. The silence was broken by Dylan's voice. "Chloe, are you finished here? Let's head back to the office. I'm really craving that seafood chowder your house husband makes." Dylan clearly didn't consider me a threat. He even gave me a dismissive smile. After they left, I overheard someone nearby comment, "Miss Sterling brings Mr. Kane everywhere with her. They must be so in love." Chloe's assistant, who was still standing there, shot me a strange look. I could guess what she was thinking. What kind of pathetic man lets this happen? I said nothing and left the track. The first thing I did was call my lawyer. "When will the divorce be final?" "Mr. Hayes," he said, "it should be about 7 more days." 7 days. I'd already waited 10 years. I could handle 7 more days. But my peace didn't last long. A call came from Chloe's assistant. "Mr. Hayes, Miss Sterling was asking when her seafood chowder would arrive. Also, Mia's teacher said she couldn't reach you. Mia's art project wasn't brought to school, and she was wondering if you could drop it off." I looked up at the clouds drifting freely across the sky and said calmly, "Tell Chloe there is no more seafood chowder. I won't be making it again, and from now on, I'm no longer responsible for Mia's affairs. Stop calling me." Then I blocked the assistant's number 2. Meanwhile, at Sterling Corp., the assistant stood awkwardly in front of her boss's desk. "Ms. Sterling, Mr. Hayes hung up on me. I tried calling back, but it seems he's blocked my number. Perhaps you could try." Chloe, in a rare move, took out her own phone, found my contact, and sent an iMessage. "What is this tantrum about?" A moment later, a red notification appeared below her text. "Message failed to send." I had blocked her. The assistant glanced at Chloe's screen and saw our last message exchange was from over a week ago. She looked surprised. "I didn't realize Mr. Hayes and Mr. Kane share a birthday. That means yesterday was his birthday too. Did you get him a gift, Miss Sterling?" Chloe was silent for a moment, then said, "Send him a belated gift. You pick something out." "Of course, Miss Sterling," the assistant replied. But before she could even start browsing, Chloe had already turned her attention back to the documents on her desk. That evening, a gift arrived from Chloe's assistant, but I refused the delivery. I had no idea what she was trying to accomplish. My birthday was over. Besides, for the last 10 years, my only birthday wish had been the same: freedom, a divorce from Chloe. And in a strange way, I had finally gotten my wish. I assumed I wouldn't have any more contact with Chloe during the 7-day waiting period. But after the courier left, a message from Mrs. Sterling appeared on my phone. "Ethan, I won't stop you from divorcing Chloe. But until it's final, my granddaughter's life is not to be disrupted in any way." How could Mia be disrupted? She was the one who asked for the divorce in the first place. Before I could even reply, another message came through. "If you want this divorce to go smoothly, you will come to the family estate this weekend to be with Mia, as you always do." Chloe never liked living with her family, so after we married, we moved out of the Sterling estate and into our own house. But after Mia was born, we established a routine of spending every weekend at the estate. Today was Friday, the day I would normally pick Mia up from preschool and drive her there. Chloe was always busy, rarely home before 10. I went straight to the estate, surprised to find Chloe was already there when I arrived. I tried to walk past her and head upstairs, but she blocked my path. "Did you like your birthday gift?" she asked, as if nothing was wrong. I stared at her, confused. Did she not know I'd refused it? Then again, that wasn't surprising. To Chloe, I was practically invisible, so of course she wouldn't know. Not wanting to engage, I just gave a non-committal nod. But then she gave me an order. "Mia is carving a good luck charm for Dylan. Go upstairs and help her finish it." I let out a cold laugh. What? Were there strings attached to that gift I didn't even accept? I brushed past her and went upstairs. When I got to the second floor, I found Mia at her desk, intently focused on carving a small piece of wood with a whittling knife. As I got closer, I saw a beautifully finished charm already sitting on the desk. My footsteps must have startled her because she looked up. The next second, she snatched the finished charm off the desk, her lips pressed into a thin line. Daddy, Mommy carved this for Uncle Dylan. You can't steal it. A sharp pain shot through my chest, as if I'd been stabbed. Couldn't believe it. The child I had cherished more than my own life was looking at me like I was a thief. Staring at her face, a perfect miniature of Chloe's, I couldn't hold back my frustration. You don't have to be so defensive. I have never wanted anything that belonged to someone else. Besides, your mother and I are getting divorced. Soon, your Uncle Dylan will be your new father. A cold voice cut in from behind me. Ethan, how dare you say such things to a child? Are you even fit to be a father? It was the longest sentence Chloe had ever spoken to me. I turned to face her, looking at her impassive expression, and gave a small, bitter smile. You're right, I'm not. So go find her one who is. I turned to leave. Chloe grabbed my arm, her voice low and warning. Ethan, but just then, Mia's smartwatch rang. Mommy, it's a video call from Uncle Dylan, she chirped happily. Instantly, Chloe's hand fell away from my arm. I watched as she walked over to answer the call, the icy mask on her face melting into a warm smile. Suddenly, the whole situation felt utterly pointless. From the moment I handed her those papers, I was prepared to burn everything to the ground. If the alternative was to spend the rest of my life as a caged bird, I would rather die. My sleep was troubled that night, but my internal clock still woke me at 5 a.m. as always. This was the time I used to get up to make breakfast for Chloe and Mia. I rubbed my temples, and remembering Mrs. Sterling's threat, I got out of bed and went downstairs. But when I got downstairs, I learned that Chloe and Mia had already left. They were meeting Dylan to watch the sunrise. It was laughable. Anyone could see Mia didn't need me as a father, yet Mrs. Sterling insisted on this charade. To the Sterlings, I was never the man of the house. I was just a prop, required to be in my designated place whether I was needed or not. The moment the weekend was over, Alex called. He suggested we go hang out near the local university to appreciate the scenery and blow off some steam. The college girls were charming and flirty, and their attention was a welcome distraction. After a few days of this, my mood had genuinely improved. Alex said cheerfully, "See, now that you've seen what you're missing, you realize that Ice Queen Chloe isn't worth your time, right?" I smiled. "Yeah, I don't love her anymore." Encouraged, Alex pressed on. "That's the spirit. You should have left her years ago. Any one of these girls would treat you better than cold-hearted Chloe. You could find someone young, fun, who actually cares about you. Wouldn't that be amazing?" I was about to laugh and agree when I heard a cough behind us. I turned to see Chloe and her assistant standing a short distance away. The assistant looked nervous, while Chloe was silhouetted against the light. I couldn't see her face, but it didn't matter. For me, she never had an expression anyway. I pretended I hadn't seen her and started to walk away with Alex. I figured she'd ignore us as usual, but to my surprise, she stepped forward and took my arm. "There's a gathering you need to attend. You're coming with me." Without waiting for a reply, she pulled me into her car. A moment later, she spoke. "Ethan, in families like ours, suitability is what matters most." I realized then she was responding to the conversation she'd overheard between me and Alex. I laughed, a bitter, angry sound. For the first time, I let my anger show. "So love doesn't matter? Kindness doesn't matter? Your idea of suitable has been my personal hell, Chloe." "And for what?" She just stared at me for a long moment, silent. I didn't want to waste energy trying to figure her out, so I just closed my eyes. When we arrived at a private club, I saw it was just a small get-together with her inner circle. She had never included me in these before. I couldn't stand her friends. They all looked down on me, calling me a Stepford husband behind my back. I kept a straight face the entire time, nursing a drink. After a while, feeling a little buzzed, I excused myself to the restroom. After I left, one of her friends immediately pounced. "Chloe, your husband didn't crack a smile all night, and he was even giving you attitude. The rumors must be true. Are you two really getting a divorce?" Chloe frowned. "Who said anything about a divorce? I am married. My husband is Ethan Hayes, and that's final." Her friend looked shocked. "Are you serious?" Chloe just gave her a look that silenced her. The friend looked at her strangely. "Chloe, do you remember Mrs. Grant from that AI development project? She was the same way with her husband. Ignored him completely, wouldn't even let him set foot in her company. He finally got fed up and left her. I hear she's been trying to win him back for years and has gotten nowhere. If you really plan on staying with Ethan for life, you might want to actually pay some attention to him." Chloe's hand, swirling the wine in her glass, paused for a fraction of a second. Then she said with cold certainty, "He wouldn't dare." At that exact moment, In the restroom, I received a text from my lawyer. Mr. Hayes, your divorce from Ms. Sterling has been finalized. The certificate is ready for you to pick up at your convenience. The day had finally come. I immediately left the club, hailed a cab to my lawyer's office, and picked up the document I had been dreaming of for years. I read the certificate over and over. From this moment on, I was free. No longer would I have to treat Chloe's whims as commands. No longer would I have to live according to the Sterling's moods. No longer would I have to maintain the perfect, smiling facade of the Sterling son-in-law, telling everyone how happy I was. I could go bungee jumping. I could race cars. I could travel. There were so many things I could finally do. After leaving the lawyer's office, Alex declared that to celebrate my freedom, we had to eat the kind of food the Sterling son-in-law would never be allowed to touch. He took me to a street food festival. Hot dogs, barbecue, greasy pizza, whatever you want, he declared. Breathing in the smoky, delicious air, surrounded by noise and life, I finally felt like I was truly living. We ate street tacos, drank cheap beer, danced on the sidewalk, and laughed until our sides hurt. The weight of the last 10 years finally began to lift. I had suppressed so much for so long. The pain and resentment needed an outlet. Fueled by liquid courage, I unblocked Mia's number and called. Mia, listen to me. I slurred into the phone. You may not like me, but I am your father. I was the one who stayed up with you all night when you were sick. I was the one who helped you with your homework every single day. The moment you chose that outsider, Dylan, over me, the moment you called me evil, I stopped being your father. So don't you ever call me daddy again. You don't deserve to. A cold, familiar voice answered from the other end. Ethan, what on earth are you talking about? I froze, realizing Mia must be with her. I let out a bitter laugh. Well, Miss Sterling, instead of lecturing me, maybe you should pay more attention to your own daughter. Did you know that the night before my birthday, she asked me to divorce you so Dylan could take my place? The funny thing is, it was the most she's ever said to me at one time. So congratulations, Chloe. You all got what you wanted. Then I hung up and blocked the number again. The first thing I did the next morning was book a one-way ticket out of the country. I knew I'd gone too far the night before. I also knew that once news of the divorce got out, my own family would never let me hear the end of it. They'd probably try to force me to go crawling back to Chloe. I packed a small bag and headed for the door, but the Maybach was already parked outside. Chloe got out with Mia and walked toward me. Mia, she said, her voice firm, apologize to your father. Mia's face was pale and tense. Daddy, I'm sorry, she mumbled. I shouldn't have said those things. I shouldn't have asked you to divorce Mommy. I was wrong. Can you please forgive me? I gave a small, humorless laugh. No apology necessary. I said what I needed to say. It's over. To my complete shock, Chloe then spoke. I'm sorry too. It's my fault for not raising her better. I never thought I'd live to see the day Chloe Sterling apologized for anything. But could a simple sorry erase years of pain? No. Chloe, I said, if you're really sorry, you can give me a ride to the airport. She looked confused. The Sterlings don't have any out-of-state business right now. Where are you going? I let out a sarcastic laugh. Is it possible that I might have a life that doesn't revolve around the Sterling family's business? For the first time, she looked genuinely uncertain. That's not what I meant, but I didn't care. She was the one who had locked me in this prison. It was only fitting that she be the one to drive me to my freedom, severing our final tie. We drove to JFK in silence. Before I got out, I handed Chloe a small box. A final gift, I said. She looked at me, a question in her eyes about the word final, but she took it. Thank you. Mia looked up at me. Daddy, what about me? I smiled. Yours is in there too. It's a gift for both of you, something you've both wanted for a long time. Just wait an hour to open it. My flight will have taken off by then. For once, Chloe looked at me with something other than indifference. She even said, come back soon. I just smiled, turned, and walked into the terminal. I was never coming back. I was going to find my freedom. Chloe watched my solitary figure disappear into the airport. An hour later, Mia excitedly tore open the box. Mommy, what did Daddy get us? He was so mysterious about it. The lid came off. Chloe turned her head just in time to see what was inside. Lying on the velvet lining was a single, folded document, our divorce certificate. Mia was only 3, but she was bright for her age. She looked at the certificate in the box, her little mouth working for a moment before she asked, Mommy, what's a divorce certificate? Daddy said it was a gift. Is this little book the gift? A roaring sound filled Chloe's ears. She dropped the file she was holding and snatched the box from Mia's hands. She didn't even notice how violently her own hands were shaking. After years of dominating the business world, Chloe had developed an almost inhuman level of self-control. She was known for her composure, but this time, for the first time in a long time, she lost it. With trembling fingers, she picked up the certificate. She had to take several deep breaths before she could open it. The moment she saw her name next to mine, her dark eyes widened in disbelief. Her first instinct was to call me, but she remembered I was on a plane. A storm of anger and confusion raged inside her. Suppressing the urge to hunt me down, she called her assistant. Find out where Ethan's flight is headed, and then find a way to get him back here immediately, and find out how this divorce was processed. There was no agreement, no court filing. How is this possible? Her voice was laced with a panic she didn't even recognize in herself. She so rarely lost her cool that the assistant on the other end of the line was terrified. She had worked for Chloe for years and had never seen her this emotional, not even when a rival's move cost the company billions. The assistant stammered a "yes, ma'am," and hung up. Chloe paced her vast study, hands on her hips, the knot of anxiety in her stomach tightening with every step. Finally, she pulled out her phone again and sent a new message to my blocked number, knowing it wouldn't go through. What is this about the divorce certificate? You're a grown man, Ethan. Stop playing these childish games. Message me when you land. Mia and I are worried. She paused, then typed again. Whatever the issue is, we can talk about it. We can communicate. There's no need for this. You're a father now, not a child. The messages went unanswered. Chloe sank into her leather office chair, rubbing her temples in exhaustion. Mia, who had been playing quietly with her blocks, looked up, her expression innocent. Mommy, does Daddy's gift mean you're getting a divorce? Chloe felt the air leave her lungs, a suffocating panic rising in her chest. After a long silence, she whispered to the empty room, Ethan, have you really given up on me completely? The waiting was agonizing. Hasn't his plane landed yet? Ethan, where did you go? Chloe lost track of how many times she checked the clock, how many messages she sent into the void. There was never a response. A strange sense of injustice washed over her. They were a perfect match. Their 5 years together had been perfectly fine. Just then, her phone rang. She snatched it up without looking at the caller ID. Ethan, you finally decided to call? I've sent you a dozen messages. Why haven't you responded? There was a pause on the other end. Ms. Sterling, it's me. Chloe glanced at the screen and saw it was her assistant. The flicker of hope died, leaving her feeling even more drained. She rubbed her temples. I'm sorry. I was distracted. What did you find? Her assistant chose her words carefully. Well, Ms. Sterling, we confirmed Mr. Hayes boarded an international flight today, but it was to a major hub, and we haven't been able to track any connecting flights. We don't know his final destination. The assistant's voice trailed off as Chloe's expression grew darker. After a long silence, Chloe asked hoarsely, and the divorce certificate? What did you find out about that? We found it. The divorce agreement was signed by you. Our legal department and a handwriting expert have both confirmed it. The signature is authentic, and the document is valid. The dam of her composure finally broke. What do you mean it's valid? Chloe's voice was dangerously quiet. Her assistant stammered, in the agreement, Mr. Hayes didn't ask for any of your assets. He's essentially leaving with nothing. All of his shares in your joint property, his personal assets, everything has been transferred to Miss Mia's name. The document states it's his contribution to her upbringing. He didn't want any of your money, and he didn't want custody. The assistant was sweating, wiping her brow. She'd been around Chloe long enough to know plenty of secrets of the rich and powerful, but she'd never seen a divorce like this. Most people fought for every last penny. Ethan had just walked away without a sound, taking nothing. She couldn't decide if he was completely indifferent or completely powerless. As she was pondering this, Chloe hung up. She clutched the phone, her mind reeling. She couldn't understand it. From her perspective, their marriage had been perfectly functional. How had it all fallen apart without her even noticing? After a long silence, she breathed out, whispering to the empty room, Ethan, what more could you have possibly wanted? Just then, the door to the study creaked open and Mia peeked in, then toddled inside. Her eyes were bright with excitement. Mommy, I asked Uncle Dylan. He said the divorce certificate means I can get a new daddy. Please marry Uncle Dylan, Mommy. I want him to be my new daddy. Before, Chloe had always dismissed such talk as childish nonsense. But now the words grated on her ears. Was this it? Was this why Ethan had left? Because of Mia's words? The thought made her frown, and she snapped at her daughter. You're 3 years old. What do you know about any of this? Don't you ever say that again. You have one father, and that's it. Stunned by her mother's sharp tone, Mia's lower lip trembled. and she burst into tears. I want a new daddy. I want Uncle Dylan to be my new daddy. I don't want my old daddy. He's just like a butler. He's no fun at all. Fury surged through Chloe. Who taught you to say that? It should have been obvious. Mia was only 3. How would she even know the word divorce, let alone come up with the idea that her father was a butler, unless someone had been putting those ideas in her head? Mia, overwhelmed, suddenly bolted from the room. I hate you, Mommy. I'm running away and I'm not coming back until you get me a new daddy. Chloe, flustered, started to go after her, but her phone rang again. It was Dylan. For a split second, she hesitated, torn between her daughter and the phone. She chose the phone. Dylan's smooth voice came through the line. Chloe, Mia just told me the most incredible thing. She said you and Ethan are divorced. That's just a child's fantasy, right? Chloe sighed. It's a misunderstanding. I am not divorcing Ethan. Was there something else? Dylan was quiet for a moment, then his voice took on a disappointed tone. No, it's just, we were supposed to take Mia to the amusement park for the fireworks tonight. I hadn't heard from you, so I was just checking in. A flicker of guilt crossed Chloe's face. I'm sorry, I completely forgot. We'll have to do it another time. By the time she hung up, Mia was nowhere to be seen. She wasn't too concerned. The house was full of staff. Surely they could keep an eye on one small child. But somehow, right under the noses of the entire staff, Mia had vanished. No one saw her leave. The only evidence was a single security camera feed from the front gate, showing her walking out onto the street, alone. Chloe had her security team turn New York City upside down, but there was no trace of Mia. She tried my number again and again, only to be met with the same recorded message. The number you have dialed is not in service. Desperate, she had her assistant track down Alex's number. This is Chloe Sterling, she said when he answered. Have you heard from Ethan? If you have, you need to tell him to call me immediately. He started this divorce nonsense, and now Mia is missing. If he has any sense of paternal duty left, he'll come back right now. Before she could finish, Alex cut her off. Whoa, hold on. Your kid is missing, so you call the police. What good is calling Ethan? What's he going to do, use his psychic powers to locate her? That's ridiculous. And don't you dare blame this on him. He only wanted a divorce because you and that ungrateful kid pushed him to it. He should have left you years ago. Neither of you deserved him. He slammed the phone down. A moment later, it rang again. It was Dylan. Chloe answered. Chloe, help. They're trying to kidnap Mia. In the background, she could hear Mia scream, Uncle Dylan, watch out. The line went dead. Chloe immediately had her team trace Dylan's phone signal and raced to the location. When she arrived, she found Dylan and Mia unconscious at the bottom of an embankment by the side of the highway. Dylan was covered in scrapes and bruises, his clothes torn, but he was holding Mia tightly against his chest. She was completely unharmed, aside from a smudge of dirt on her cheek. Everyone at the scene was touched by his heroism. Chloe's fists clenched at her sides as she watched them being loaded into the ambulance. As the flashing lights disappeared into the distance, she turned to her assistant. I want a full background check on Dylan. Everything he's done recently, everyone he's talked to. I want to know everything. Don't miss a single detail. The assistant was momentarily confused, but then it clicked. She had been with Chloe all day as they searched the entire city with a professional team and found nothing. How had Dylan managed to find her so easily? And how had a 3-year-old slipped past a house full of staff in the first place? If it was a real kidnapping, why was there no ransom demand? Why just leave them by the side of the road? Chloe had survived in the cutthroat world of business for too long to miss such obvious holes in the story. It didn't take long for her to get the proof. Dylan had orchestrated the entire thing. She stared at the report, her expression unreadable, her usual cold demeanor now radiating a chilling intensity. Withdraw the police report, she said, her voice flat. Bury this. Destroy the evidence. No one else is to know. The official story is that Dylan saved Mia. Her assistant stared, incredulous. Was she really going to protect the man who had staged the kidnapping of her own daughter? But before the assistant could process it, Chloe was already gone, heading down the hospital corridor. She pushed open the door to Dylan's room. He was propped up in bed, looking pale and weak. She frowned, her eyes studying him with a new, critical light. Dylan gave a weak cough, making sure to display the bandages on his arm. How's Mia? He asked, his voice filled with concern. Is she all right? She's so little. This must have been so traumatic for her. This is all Ethan's fault. Just up and leaving, abandoning his own child. What kind of irresponsible father does that? I need to go see her. He made a show of trying to get out of bed, but Chloe stopped him. Her voice was low and controlled. Ethan is my husband. Whether or not he is a good father is not for you to judge. Dylan froze. The face that was always so warm and kind to him was now a mask of ice. He clenched his fists, a flicker of guilt in his eyes. Chloe, after all these years, how can you call me an outsider? He softened his voice. I'm sorry. I was just worried. I spoke out of turn. But this whole thing was just so awful. Even I'm still shaken. I've watched Mia grow up, you know? I can't help but worry about her. Chloe's hand, hanging at her side, tightened into a fist. Her eyes were filled with a cold, questioning light. After a long silence, she finally spoke. If you found it so awful and frightening, then why did you arrange the whole thing? The color drained from Dylan's face. He blinked, feigning innocence. Chloe, what are you talking about? I don't understand. Chloe didn't elaborate, but her eyes held a mixture of disappointment and something more complex. I've already destroyed the evidence, but you are to stay away from Mia from now on. I'm sending you abroad. I'll make sure you're taken care of financially, but you are never to come back. She turned to leave, but Dylan grabbed her arm. Chloe, please, don't send me away. Whatever I did wrong, I can fix it. We've been through so much together. I can't live without you. Chloe was unmoved, prying his fingers from her arm. He grew desperate. Chloe, why? I admit I was impatient, but you and Ethan are divorced now. All I want is to marry the woman I love. What's so wrong with that? I don't even care that Mia isn't mine. I'll treat her like my own daughter. Chloe finally yanked her arm free. She stared at him, her eyes cold and confused. The woman you love? Isn't the woman you love supposed to be my dead sister? Dylan's face went white, his lips trembling. What? The woman I love has always been you. You're the one who's been by my side all these years, taking care of me. You remember my birthday when even I forget. You treat me better than you ever treated your husband. How could you not love me? Chloe took a step back. I took care of you because it was my sister's dying wish. I have never had romantic feelings for you, and I will never marry you. The jet will be ready this afternoon. Be on it. And with that, she walked out of the room without a backward glance. Meanwhile, I was in Finland, oblivious to all of this. I had secured a residency permit, enrolled in a local university, and was finally pursuing my dream of becoming a diplomatic translator. Before the semester began, I used the money I'd managed to save over the years to buy a small house. I was excited to finally live on my own. Between my studies and my new life, I rarely thought about the past. My marriage to Chloe felt like it had happened to someone else, a lifetime ago. Here, I wasn't the sterling son-in-law, Chloe's husband, or Mia's father. I was just Ethan, a whole and independent person. The 4 years I spent studying in Finland were the happiest and most liberating of my life. I made real friends. I was finally myself. In my 5th year, I achieved my goal. I was hired as a diplomatic translator at the US Embassy in Helsinki. What I didn't know was that for the entire 6 years I had been gone, Chloe had never stopped looking for me. Back in the CEO's office at Sterling Corp, an excited assistant burst in. Ms. Sterling, we've found him. He's working at the US Embassy in Finland. Chloe shot up from her chair, a genuine smile spreading across her face for the first time in years. Her assistant stared, stunned. She hadn't seen her boss smile in 6 years. Chloe started for the door, then stopped and turned back. Get me a complete file on him, everything you can find, now. A feeling of pure elation swelled in her chest, and she couldn't suppress the smile on her face. Her eyes fell on the framed photo of the 3 of them on her desk. She looked at my smiling face in the picture and whispered, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to clear up all the misunderstandings, and I'm going to bring you home. I never once tried to find out what had become of Chloe and Mia. As far as I was concerned, they had gotten exactly what they wanted, and Mia had the father she'd always wished for. My life was full, consumed by international conferences and translation work. I was busy and content, until one day my supervisor brought a thick project proposal to my desk. Ethan, he said, you're the best we've got. This is a major new energy proposal, and the Finnish government is taking it very seriously. We need you to translate it, top priority. I looked at the inch-thick binder and smiled. Of course, sir. You can count on me. But when I opened it, my blood ran cold. The proposal was from Sterling Corporation. The image of Chloe instantly flooded my mind. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. Sterling Corp was a global entity. It wasn't that strange for them to be expanding into Finland. It had to be a coincidence. After several sleepless nights, I knocked on my supervisor's door with the Finnish translation. He flipped through a few pages, nodding in approval. Incredible work, Ethan. You finished this massive project in record time, and the quality is impeccable. You really are as good as they say. You're a real asset to this department." He grinned. "The delegation from Sterling Corp is flying in for a site visit. It's a big deal for the Finns, and I've already assigned you as their official interpreter for the duration of their stay. It can't be all work and no play, you know. You're still single, right? I hear the CEO of Sterling Corp is quite the catch, young, brilliant, and also single. This could be a great opportunity for you." A chill went down my spine. Sterling Corp? Couldn't be Chloe, could it? The coincidence seemed too great. A few days later, my supervisor and I were at the airport, waiting for the Sterling Corp delegation to arrive. "Ethan," my supervisor said, "the Finns are hosting a welcome dinner tonight. I'll introduce you to the CEO then." Just as he spoke, he started waving at someone behind me. "Ms. Sterling, over here." My supervisor led me over, and I found myself standing face to face with Chloe. I was too stunned to react. 6 years had passed, but she hadn't aged a day. She was just as beautiful and just as silent as I remembered. My supervisor gave me a gentle push forward. "Miss Sterling," he said with a broad smile, "allow me to introduce Ethan Hayes from our translation department here at the embassy. He'll be your interpreter for the duration of your visit. Don't let his youth fool you. He's fluent in 5 languages and is our top diplomatic translator. And he's single." Chloe's eyes were fixed on me, her expression a mixture of scrutiny and something else I couldn't quite decipher. I forced a polite, professional smile and extended my hand. "Ms. Sterling, a pleasure." She stared at me for a long moment, her eyes unreadable, before finally taking my hand in hers. This whole encounter was a shock, and I just wanted it to be over. I tried to pull my hand away, but her grip tightened. I frowned, my voice dropping. "Ms. Sterling, is there a problem?" My supervisor, sensing the tension, jumped in with a nervous laugh. "Well, our Ethan certainly has a way of making an impression, doesn't he? It seems even Ms. Sterling is captivated." Chloe's eyes darkened, but she released my hand, a faint, unreadable smile touching her lips. "Indeed." She said nothing more, and the moment passed. The dinner began, and I pushed her from my mind, focusing on the job. I sat beside her, calmly and professionally translating between her and the Finnish delegates. As I spoke, she leaned in slightly, listening intently, nodding at my translations. I faltered for a second. In our entire 5-year marriage, she had never once listened to me with such focus. A pang of bitterness hit me, not for her, but for the man I used to be, for the empty shell who had been the Sterling son-in-law, his soul locked away. But I was free of that now. I had moved on. When Chloe spoke, her voice was low and measured. After each sentence, she would pause and look at me, her gaze steady and intense. I found myself deliberately avoiding her eyes, focusing solely on the task at hand. The dinner was a success, and the initial talks went smoothly. As we were leaving, I gave Chloe a brief, professional handshake. "Ms. Sterling, it was a pleasure. Goodbye." Then I turned and walked away, my shoes crunching in the fresh snow. Just as I was opening my car door, I heard her call my name. "Ethan." I stopped but didn't turn around, waiting. After a long pause, she spoke again, her voice strained. "Is there nothing you want to say to me?" There was a strange, wounded note in her hoarse voice. I felt a flicker of something, but I told myself it was just the cold of the Finnish night. "Ms. Sterling, my work for the evening is complete. I have nothing else to say." But she wouldn't let it go. Her usual icy composure was cracking, a note of desperation creeping into her voice. "Ethan, how could you just leave like that, without a word? Even if you didn't care about me, what about Mia? Did you ever once think about her? It's been 6 years. She's 9 years old now. Don't you miss her at all?" I finally turned to face her, a cool, detached smile on my face. Why would I miss a child who never cared about me? Besides, I'm sure she's perfectly happy with her new father by now. Chloe frowned, her lips pressed together, a look of genuine confusion in her eyes. She sighed, a sound of defeat, and took a step closer, her voice softening. "She didn't disregard you, Ethan. She was just a child. She didn't know how to show love. And she doesn't have a new father. You are her only father." I almost laughed out loud. Too young to know how to love? That was absurd. Age has nothing to do with the capacity for love. Chloe and Mia remembered Dylan's birthday. They took the time to hand-carve a gift for him. They knew how to love. They just didn't know how to love me. I leaned against my car, studying her. I wondered, if I were still her husband, would she be standing here now actually talking to me, trying to understand me? I shook my head and let out a self-deprecating laugh. "What are you laughing at?" she asked, confused. I met her gaze, my smile wide and mocking. "Wouldn't you laugh if you heard a good joke? Chloe, divorced or not, We were never close enough to reminisce about the good old days. You know almost nothing about me, and frankly, I have no interest in revisiting our past. Without waiting for her reply, I got in my car and drove away. Seeing her again must have stirred something up, because memories I had long buried started to resurface. For 5 years, I had tried so hard to be the perfect husband, the perfect father. I had never once been myself. During my 6 years abroad, I had rarely thought about that life. I had forgotten what it was like to be her husband, to be Mia's father. But now, Chloe's reappearance was forcing me to remember everything I had tried so hard to forget. I pulled the covers tighter around me, a deep exhaustion settling into my bones. I fell asleep quickly. Later that night, I was woken by the sound of my neighbor's dog barking furiously. The barking pulled me from a dream filled with Chloe's cold indifference and Mia's guarded disdain. I went to the window to see what the commotion was. And there, standing on my doorstep in the freezing night, was Chloe. I had no idea how she'd found me, and the absurdity of it almost made me laugh. It was well below zero outside. Dressed as she was, if she stood out there all night, I'd find a human-shaped ice sculpture on my porch in the morning. I didn't know what she wanted, but I couldn't just leave her out there to freeze. I opened the door and let her in. I didn't want the trouble of having my ex-wife's corpse on my doorstep. I sat her down in front of the fireplace and, out of basic human decency, made her a cup of coffee. Her knuckles were red, and she was shivering uncontrollably. She cradled the warm mug in her hands, and after a long moment, she managed a small smile. "Thank you." I was taken aback. Chloe rarely smiled at me. Her default expression had always been one of cool indifference. I frowned, my patience wearing thin. "Chloe, what are you doing here?" She looked down at her cup, her voice barely a whisper. "I want to know why we got divorced." I stared at her, and she met my gaze, her eyes filled with a confusion so genuine it was staggering. A bitter mix of emotions churned inside me. So it was true. The last 5 years of my life, everything I had gone through, had been completely invisible to her. I sighed, suddenly wishing I had just left her outside to freeze. She swallowed, and after a long hesitation, she said my name, my real name, in a way she never had before. Ethan. It was laughable. The first time she had ever said my name with any meaning was 6 years after our divorce. I couldn't help the sarcastic edge to my voice. "Chloe, has it ever occurred to you that the very fact that you don't know the reason for our divorce is the reason for our divorce?" She froze, that look of utter confusion returning to her eyes. For a second, I felt an old, familiar sting behind my eyes, but I pushed it down. "I told you why many times," I said, my voice even. "I told you that since you and Mia were so fond of Dylan, I would agree to a divorce. I told you I would give up custody and walk away with nothing. I told you to put all our joint assets in Mia's name, as a final gift from the father she never wanted. I said all of this to you, Chloe. Do you have any memory of it at all?" She frowned, a look of intense concentration on her face, but the blankness in her eyes gave her away. She couldn't remember. Of course she couldn't. She had never truly listened to a word I said during our entire marriage. To her, I was a husband in name, only a glorified chef, Dylan's personal butler. She looked down, her voice laced with a hollow apology. "I'm sorry. I honestly don't remember. I must have been busy, but that's it? That's the reason you left? I can't accept that." I raised an eyebrow. "What about the smell of another man's cologne on your clothes every single night? Is that a good enough reason?" Her expression faltered. She seemed to finally grasp what I was implying, but she shook her head in disbelief. "You left me because of Dylan?" The shock in her voice was palpable, as if leaving her over Dylan was somehow more ridiculous than leaving her for completely ignoring my existence. I just nodded. "You came home every night smelling of him." Mia couldn't stop talking about how much she wanted him to be her new father. Was I supposed to just stick around, clinging to the title of sterling son-in-law that I never even wanted in the first place? For the first time, the color drained from her face. "So you thought I was having an affair?" I held up a finger. "It was past suspicion. When you took him to every event as your date. When your friends openly mocked me and said how much better you two looked together. When you signed divorce papers without even reading them because you were in a hurry to meet him. At that point, whether you were actually sleeping with him didn't even matter anymore. I divorced you because I refused to die in that prison. No one wants to live their life as a performance, having every genuine part of themselves sanded down by rules and expectations. I never wanted to be that empty suit, Chloe. Not for a second." Her eyelashes fluttered, but she remained silent. Maybe she never expected me to say any of this. Or maybe she just didn't care. Maybe this was just an exercise for her, a postmortem on a failed project. But for me, it was all pointless. She loved Dylan. She remembered his birthday, planned surprises for him. She dropped everything to be with him, listened to every word he said, knew every little thing about him. She loved him. I glanced at the clock. 4:30 a.m. If we were still married, I'd be getting up in half an hour to make them breakfast. A wave of exhaustion washed over me. "Miss Sterling," I said, "I believe you have your answers. It's late. I need to sleep." Before I could finish, she said 3 words, so clearly and seriously that they stopped me in my tracks. "I am sorry." I was so shocked I couldn't speak. She looked me straight in the eye and repeated, "I am sorry. I had no idea. I never noticed any of those things, and I never realized how much pain I was causing you. It was my fault. I apologize." It was almost funny. I must be the only person on earth to ever receive an apology from the great Chloe Sterling. But then, a hollow ache spread through my chest. For the first time in a long time, I felt the sting of all that old hurt. So when I finally laid it all out for her, even she could see how I had been wronged. I subtly rubbed the tightness in my chest. Some of the anger I'd been holding onto for years seemed to dissolve. Maybe, just maybe, I could finally let it go. Chloe's voice cut through my thoughts. "But you're wrong about one thing. I never cheated on you. I don't love Dylan." A flicker of guilt and a deep, old sadness crossed her face. "I took care of him. I gave him whatever he wanted, because it was my sister's dying wish. She loved him. If she were still alive, he would have been my brother-in-law. That's the only reason." I held up a hand, cutting her off. "It doesn't matter anymore." My indifference seemed to wound her. A flicker of hurt crossed her face. "No, it is important," she insisted. "For the 6 years you've been gone, Mia and we've missed you. I want to fix this. I want you to come home." For a split second, I thought she had to be joking. I had waited 10 years for this freedom, and she wanted me to just come back? A laugh, deep and incredulous, escaped me. Couldn't stop it. She looked completely bewildered, as if she truly had no idea what was so funny. Or perhaps she had simply never seen the real me before. I took a few deep breaths to get myself under control. "Chloe, are you serious? I fought for years to get away from you. I have a life now, a career. Why in the world would I go back? Go back to what? To being your personal chef? Your errand boy? Running that ridiculous chowder to your office every day? You feel guilty about your sister, you want to honor her memory by taking care of Dylan. That's your business. But don't drag me into it. I don't owe your sister anything. I don't owe Dylan anything. And I sure as hell don't owe you anything." She opened her mouth to say something else, but I was already at the door, holding it open. A blast of icy wind swept into the room. I gripped the doorknob, my voice as cold as the air outside. "Get out. I won't ask again." She finally left. I was exhausted, but sleep wouldn't come. The next day, I dragged myself to work, only to be met with what felt like a cruel joke. My supervisor stood before me, his tone serious. "Ethan, you've done outstanding work here. This new energy project with Sterling Corp is a huge opportunity, not just for Finland, but for US-Finnish relations. The Finnish delegation wants to accompany Ms. Sterling on a reciprocal visit to the States to see their operations there. They need a top-tier interpreter to go with them. I've already put your name forward. You'll be representing the department on this trip back home. You've been away for 6 years, son. It's a good chance to see your family." I smiled and nodded, while inside, my mind was racing. This was all her fault. She shows up, and my life is instantly thrown into chaos. I forced a smile. "Of course, sir. You can count on me." That afternoon, I found myself on a private jet back to the United States, seated with Chloe and the Finnish delegation. I don't know who was responsible for the seating chart, but I ended up right next to Chloe, separated only by an armrest. I rubbed my tired eyes and turned to stare out the window. We had both been up all night, but she looked as fresh and composed as ever. A few minutes later, I felt a soft, warm blanket being draped over me. Her movements were gentle, as if she thought I was asleep and didn't want to wake me. I kept my eyes closed, refusing to acknowledge her. To me, Chloe was 2 things: the woman I had once truly loved and the architect of my prison. Our relationship had been severed the moment I signed those papers. I never expected to see her the moment we deplaned. Mia, my daughter, connected to me now only by blood. Mrs. Sterling was holding her hand in the arrivals hall. At 9 years old, she was no longer a toddler, but a tall, slender girl. The moment she saw me, she cried out, "Daddy!" The Finnish delegates exchanged confused glances. I kept my smile perfectly in place and said smoothly in Finnish, "It seems the poor girl has lost her father." Beside me, Chloe's face hardened, so she understood Finnish. Mia tried to run to me, but Mrs. Sterling held her back, pulling her away before she could make a scene. I knew Mrs. Sterling wasn't there for a happy family reunion. She was using Mia as leverage, trying to manipulate me into something. But I was no longer her puppet. The next few days of touring Sterling Corp facilities went smoothly. Chloe was, as always, flawless in a professional setting. But the moment the official business was concluded, she cornered me. "Ethan, the official tour is over. Won't you come home and see Mia? She misses you." I laughed inwardly. Missed me? All I could picture was that little girl's face, a mirror of her mother's, filled with disdain. "I don't think that's a good idea," I said. "She never liked me to begin with. After 6 years, she must despise me. She wanted Dylan to be her father. And you wanted to honor your sister's memory. You should have just married him. It would have been perfect for everyone. And it would have saved your future husband the awkwardness of helping you take care of your late sister's boyfriend." Chloe rubbed her temples, a weary sigh escaping her lips. "Ethan, must we be like this?" I gave her a cool look. "Don't like it? We don't have to talk at all." With that, I gathered my things and went back to my hotel. There was no reason for me to go to my family's home. I found out Alex was in town, and my mood instantly lifted. I called him to meet up. When we got together, it was like no time had passed. We talked for hours. Right in the middle of a story, my phone rang. It was an unknown local number. I hesitated for a second, then answered. A woman's voice on the other end asked cautiously, "Hello, am I speaking with Mia Hayes' father? This is her teacher. Mia was in a fight at school today. I just spoke with her mother, and she told me to call you." Alex, annoyed at the interruption, snatched the phone from my hand. "No, wrong number," he said, and hung up. "Is Chloe insane?" he fumed. "You're divorced. You don't have custody. You've been back in the country for 3 days, and she's already pulling this crap." The phone immediately rang again. I answered. It was the teacher, her voice now strained with impatience. "Mr. Hayes, I really must insist you come to the school. The other child has a head injury, and his parents are demanding to speak with you. This needs to be handled." Left with no choice, Alex and I drove to the school. In the principal's office, a group of disheveled children stood with their parents. All except Mia. She stood alone. The injured boy's mother was yelling at Mia. "What kind of vicious child are you? Didn't your father ever teach you not to hit people?" Another kid snickered. "Mia doesn't have a dad. He abandoned her." Mia's eyes flashed with rage, and she lunged at the boy again like a little wolf. I could see the Sterlings had given her self-defense training, but with the other parents there to intervene, she didn't stand a chance. As she hit the floor, she saw me standing in the doorway. Her eyes instantly filled with tears, but she blinked them back, gritted her teeth, and scrambled to her feet. I ignored her and addressed the room. "I am Mia's biological father," I said calmly. "Her mother and I are divorced. I do not have custody. Any issues regarding compensation should be directed to her mother and legal guardian, Chloe Sterling." Mia looked up at me, her face a mask of disbelief. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her quickly swipe at her eyes, as if she didn't want me to see her cry. Wasn't she the one who had begged me to divorce her mother? What were these tears for? At the mention of Chloe's name, however, the other parents' attitudes shifted. Their anger visibly deflated. Chloe Sterling's name was a fixture in the financial pages. Everyone knew who she was. This was a minor issue that her army of lawyers could have handled in minutes. But she had sent them to me. Did she think this would magically reawaken some dormant fatherly instinct? Had she forgotten that love is a two-way street? Not even all parents love their children unconditionally. One of the fathers finally spoke up. "Mr. Hayes, divorced or not, your daughter assaulted my son. You need to give us some kind of explanation." I nodded and looked at Mia. "Why did you do it?" She just stood there, her jaw set, refusing to speak. I no longer had the patience to coax words out of her like I used to. "If you don't want to talk, you can wait for your mother. I have things to do." My words were barely out of my mouth before she exploded, her eyes red with fury. "They said I didn't have a father. Are you happy now? Why didn't Mommy marry Uncle Dylan? He would never ignore me like you do. I hate you. I hate you." I let her finish, then raised an eyebrow. "When your mother and I were married, you screamed at me because you wanted Dylan to be your father. That, I could almost understand. But we're divorced now. If you want a new father, that's your problem." The other parents exchanged glances. I could hear them whispering. "She drove her own father away. No wonder he doesn't want her. I've seen that Dylan guy with Miss Sterling at galas," one mother murmured to another. "I always thought he was her husband. Turns out he was the affair." Mia, at that sensitive age, couldn't bear to hear it. She tried to bolt from the room, but stopped short. Chloe was striding down the hall, flanked by her assistant and 2 bodyguards. Her face was a blank mask, but her presence filled the room, sucking all the air out of it. Her cold eyes swept across the room. "What happened?" she asked, her voice flat. No one spoke. Even Mia seemed terrified of her, standing silently with her head bowed. I gave her a brief glance. "You're here. Good. She's your responsibility. You handle it." I turned to leave. "Ethan, Daddy." I heard them call out behind me, but I didn't stop. I walked out of the office and didn't look back. Alex was waiting in the car. "You shouldn't have even gone in there," he said as I got in. "You have no idea what happened after you left." That kid threw a massive tantrum, demanding that Dylan be her new dad. Chloe slapped her, so she ran away and got herself into that whole fake kidnapping mess. The one Dylan heroically saved her from. "A match made in heaven," I muttered. We headed to a bar, and I quickly put the whole incident out of my mind. But hours later, as Alex and I stumbled out onto the street, we came face to face with Chloe and Mia. She was holding Mia's hand. I had no idea how long they had been waiting there. When she saw me, her eyes flickered with some emotion I couldn't name. "Ethan," she said, "we need to talk." Chloe never gave up on anything she wanted. Not wanting to waste time arguing, I told Alex to get a ride home. I got in the car with them. The car pulled up in front of a familiar restaurant. It was the one I had booked for my birthday 6 years ago. The one she had never shown up to, because she had booked it out from under me to celebrate with Dylan. 6 years later, she had booked the entire place, just for me. The irony was bitter. I didn't need it anymore. I sat down and got straight to the point. "Whatever you have to say, just say it. But let me be clear on 2 things. I'm not taking custody, and we are not getting back together." In other words, I wanted nothing to do with either of them. Chloe looked like she wanted to speak, but couldn't find the words. Mia stared at me, her eyes red and brimming with tears. But I was no longer the man who would lose a night's sleep to soothe her crying. Finally, Chloe broke the silence. "Ethan, if you never loved me, why did you marry me? I thought we were a suitable match, that you were the perfect sterling son-in-law." I could see a flicker of pain in her eyes, but her words sent a chill down my spine, dragging me back to a memory I had tried to bury. I closed my eyes, trying to push the images away, but they wouldn't go. I had to admit, even after all this time, the past was still a part of me. I took a sip of water. "If you were sent to a behavioral correction facility," I said, my voice quiet, "and you were abused, locked in solitary and punished daily, and the only way out was to agree to be molded into the perfect, docile spouse, you'd probably agree to it too." She stared at me, her expression blank, as if I were speaking a foreign language. I let out a bitter laugh. "You didn't actually think a straight-A student like me had no ambition, did you? Your family chose me when I was 16. When I was 18, I tried to rebel to get out of the arrangement. For that, they sent me to that facility. I wasn't let out until it was time for our wedding. I still can't bear to think about that time. So no, I never wanted to be the sterling son-in-law. Not then and not now. I did want a happy marriage. I wanted a family. But you and your family destroyed any hope of that. You showed me that your world was a prison, one that would have suffocated me if I had stayed. I have a new life now. The best thing you can do for me is to leave me alone. And as for this restaurant, I've hated it ever since that night 6 years ago." Without giving either of them a chance to respond, I stood up and walked out. I had almost reached the door when I heard her choked voice behind me. "I'm sorry. I never knew. But if you wanted a loving marriage, does that mean you once loved me? If you did, is there any chance we could start over? Even a small one?" I didn't turn around, and I didn't answer. The next day, I got an unexpected visitor. My father, whom I hadn't seen in years. He greeted me with a sickeningly sweet smile. "Son, where have you been all this time?" Not a single phone call home. I saw the gray in his hair and felt a strange mix of emotions. This man, who had once held so much power over me, was now practically groveling. It felt as though the ghosts of my past were finally losing their power. I snapped back to the present. "If you have something to say, just say it," I said, my voice cold. He was clearly taken aback by my tone. The smile on his face faltered. A dark look flashed in his eyes before he masked it again. "I just thought, since you're back, you could come home for dinner. You know, Miss Sterling has been very generous to our family while you've been away. It's clear she still cares for you. You never consulted us about the divorce. Now that you're back, it's a good time for our families to talk. After all, this marriage was arranged when you were just 16. I heard the unspoken demand in his voice. My smile turned to ice. "You want me to get back together with Chloe?" He nodded eagerly, that old, calculating glint returning to his eyes. I laughed, the sound harsh. What did the Sterlings offer you this time? A new contract? A business deal? If our family has to sell its own son to stay afloat, then it deserves to go bankrupt. My words hit their mark. The smile vanished from his face, replaced by rage. You think you're so tough now, after a few years away? Is that any way to speak to your father? If someone hadn't told Chloe that I was the one who sent you to that facility, she never would have pulled her investments from our company. We lost half our value overnight because of you. You are coming with me to see her, and you are going to fix this. He reached for my arm, but I shoved him away. It's past time someone cut the rot out of this family, I said coldly. An hour later, I was in the living room of my family's home, and Chloe was there, waiting for me. Mia was sitting beside her. I ignored them both and took a seat across the room. Chloe began, "Ethan, I'm here today too." I cut her off without looking at her. "I don't care why you're here. The best thing you could do for me is to not be here at all." The light in her eyes dimmed. "I'm not trying to force you," she said softly. She never got to finish. This time, it was my father who interrupted. He bustled in with a bottle of expensive wine, his voice oozing false cheerfulness. "Chloe, my dear, you must try this. Ethan has always been a bit headstrong, but I've had a word with him. He's come back to his senses, ready to be a proper husband to you. We should start planning the new wedding right away." In his eyes, I wasn't a son. I was a commodity, a bargaining chip. I was never a person to him. But Chloe, the real power in the room, remained silent. My father grew nervous. "Ms. Sterling," he tried again, "I know you must still be angry about what happened 6 years ago. We don't have to have a big wedding, of course. If you'd rather not, that's fine. Just take him back." He finished, his voice hopeful. "What do you say?" The answer came not from Chloe, but from the sound of the front door being thrown open. "I say it's outrageous," a booming voice declared. "Arranged marriages in this day and age? And trying to poach one of my best men from the State Department, no less." A team of security guards entered, followed by an elderly man with a commanding presence. He was old, with a shock of white hair, but he radiated an authority that was impossible to ignore. My father, though just a businessman, recognized the security detail. They were federal agents. The mood in the room instantly shifted. My father rushed forward, his voice dripping with deference. "Sir, to what do we owe this honor? Your presence graces our humble home." The old man snorted, his eyes like chips of ice. "The laws against coercion and forced contracts have been on the books for centuries. And yet here you are, attempting to force a member of my diplomatic corps into a marriage against his will. Are you trying to drag us back to the dark ages?" My father was speechless. Everyone in the room stared at the old man, dumbfounded. "A member of the diplomatic corps?" my father stammered. "Sir, you must be mistaken. This is a private family matter." The old man ignored him completely, turning to me with a warm smile. "Ethan, come here." My father's confusion turned to disbelief, then to contempt. "Sir, you must have the wrong person. My son never even finished college. He's a house husband, a failure who ran away from his family. You can't possibly mean he didn't get to finish." The agents moved in and restrained him. As everyone stared in shock, I stood up and walked over to the old man. "Director Vance," I said apologetically, "I'm so sorry you had to come all this way for my personal affairs. Before my father had dragged me here, I'd sent a quick text to Alex." The old man was Director Vance, a senior official at the State Department. I had met him once, briefly, when I first started. He waved a dismissive hand. "Nonsense, son. You're one of our best and brightest. The idea of anyone trying to force you into being a house husband is preposterous. I won't stand for it. We fully support our people finding happiness, but coercion is another matter entirely. I'm cutting your leave short, effective immediately. I assume you have no objections." I shook my head, smiling. "No objections, sir. I can't wait to get back to work." He nodded, and at that moment, an official government car pulled up, followed by 2 police cruisers. I saw Director Vance to his car. As I closed the door, police officers approached my father. "Mr. Hayes," one of them said, showing his badge, "the behavioral facility you sent your son to has been under investigation for illegal confinement, abuse, and psychological manipulation. We need you to come with us for questioning." My father protested his innocence, but they led him away. The family dinner was officially over. I was about to get in the car and leave when I heard a small, choked voice behind me. "Daddy!" My hand tightened on the car door. Director Vance looked at me and gave a slight nod. "This line of work, you don't get to see your family much. Best to handle things while you can." With that, his car pulled away, leaving me there. I turned to face Chloe and Mia. Mia was clutching her mother's hand, her eyes swimming with tears that she was stubbornly refusing to let fall. "Do you really not want to be my daddy anymore?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Do you really not want me? Mommy and we missed you. I see her in her study sometimes, just staring at your picture. I was stupid before. I didn't know what I was saying. Can you forgive me? Daddy, can you please try to love me again?" Looking at her, a wave of sadness washed over me. She was my daughter. It was impossible not to love her, not to feel a pang of sympathy for her. But I remembered all those years of feeling so alone, when my own child had stood against me without a second thought. I could move on now, but I couldn't forgive them on behalf of the man I used to be. I looked at her, my voice gentle. "We didn't have much time together, Mia. For the first year and a half of your life, you were just a baby, learning to talk. I held you every day, teaching you words you probably don't remember. And then, when you started to understand the world, you decided I wasn't good enough. You decided you wanted someone else to be your father. Even though you were just a child, the pain I felt in that moment was very real. For the next 6 years, I wasn't there. I wasn't a part of your life, so I have no right to lecture you or teach you anything. But I will tell you this one thing, and it may be the last thing I ever teach you. You have to take responsibility for your words and your actions, even when you're a child. And, I was just a child, is not always a good enough reason to be forgiven." As I finished, I heard a desperate cry behind me. "Daddy, I know I was wrong. Please don't go. Please." I hesitated for a fraction of a second, but I didn't stop walking. Call me cold-blooded. Call me irresponsible. It doesn't matter. I had already given Mia the best life possible. With Chloe, she would have the best education, the best of everything. She would not want for love or care. She would inherit the entire Sterling Empire. The life others dreamed of was just her starting point. She had more than she could ever imagine. Losing a father would undoubtedly affect her. But for her to have a father, I would have to give up my own life. And if she had been a child who truly loved me, I might have made that sacrifice. But she wasn't. I had failed as a husband and I had failed as a father. But I had finally succeeded at being myself. Someone in this world had to love me. If no one else would, then I would love myself. At that thought, a small smile touched my lips, and I walked away, my steps lighter than they had been in years. The day I was scheduled to fly back to Finland, Chloe came to the airport to see me off. She didn't ask about getting back together, or if there was still a chance for us. She just watched me silently for a long time. "Ethan," she finally said, "if I could do it all over again, I would have cherished you. I would have loved you. I wouldn't have waited until I'd lost you to realize what I had. I always just assumed you would be there. I never realized that nothing I did ever made you happy. I'm so sorry." I didn't respond, just glanced up at the departure board. "You saw me off last time, too? We didn't get to say a proper goodbye then. Let's do it right this time." The word goodbye seemed to physically pain her. A look of profound sadness filled her eyes. "Can we?" she began, her lips trembling, but she couldn't finish the sentence. I opened my arms. "Don't look so sad. We were a part of each other's lives for a long time. Think of it as a hug between old friends." Before the words were even fully out of my mouth, she was in my arms, holding on to me tightly. We had so rarely been this close during our marriage. A simple hug, holding hands, a quiet conversation, all things I had once desperately wanted and never received. And now that I no longer wanted them, they were being offered freely. I sighed and gently patted her back. Her shoulders were shaking with silent sobs. My voice was thick with emotion when I spoke. "Take care of Mia, and if you find someone else, build a new family. Just be kinder to him this time." She just shook her head, her grip tightening. Fate has a cruel sense of humor. I had always believed she felt nothing for me, which had made it easy to walk away. I thought my leaving was the best solution for everyone. I would be free. She would be with the man she loved. Mia would have the father she wanted. But it turned out we were all just missing each other in the dark. Maybe, for her, this was a tragedy too. Her voice was a raw whisper. "It hurts so much that I never held you like this before." For a second, I felt the sting of tears, but then I smiled, a genuine smile of acceptance. I gently pushed her away. "It doesn't matter anymore, Chloe. We both have to move forward now. No looking back." She took my hand, her gaze intense and serious. "I will never have another husband," she said, each word deliberate. "And Mia will only ever have one father. I know we hurt you, and I know you can't forgive us now, but we will wait for you. If you ever want to see us, just say the word. I don't care where in the world I am, I will bring Mia to you. My door, Ethan, will always be open for you." Just then, A small figure darted out from behind a nearby pillar. It was Mia, her eyes red from crying. "Daddy, I know I was wrong," she sobbed. "I'll wait for you. I'll wait until you want to be my daddy again." I gently wiped the tears from her cheeks. "I'm sorry, Mia. I can't stay and be the father you need right now, but I will always be your father. Nothing and no one can ever change that. But before a man can be a father, he has to be his own person first." The boarding call for my flight to Helsinki echoed through the terminal. I gave Mia's head one last gentle pat, then looked at Chloe. "Take her home." With that, I picked up my carry-on and walked toward my gate. As the plane broke through the clouds, the city below became a glittering web of light. I was leaving again. Maybe our shared blood would bring us together again someday, but my choice would remain the same. There was a long road ahead of me, and for the first time I was walking it as myself.